do is that we would suggest to the council that you schedule workshops. One workshop to talk about Tenalima, which was a proposed site for development, and School Street Plaza. And the reason for that is we wanted to provide an opportunity for the council really to talk more about policy issues. The owners have indicated that they would share their concepts or plan to share their concepts at those workshops. Based on that, you can have a discussion with the owner and really delve into the policies related to the current concerns we heard: parking, traffic, affordability, unit type, and size. You would be able to have that discussion in a forum workshop setting. So I think that's very important. What that requires, though, at least for School Street Plaza, is that ultimately we would propose to the council, depending on that workshop, that we probably rezone that property from PDD to perhaps what we refer to as central commercial, or a portion of a PDD. Really, a lot depends on the workshop. Now, the site is light commercial. So under light commercial, it would be that until we could do the rezoning. Now, the reason for School Street Plaza, one of the next slides, oh, that's Tenalima. Sorry, that was location Lima, Tenalima. School Street Plaza, and that's just west of the ball field downtown. And if you go to the next slide. So within that, you may notice, and the community may notice, that this flyer did go out talking about School Street Plaza. Now, in this flyer, what it is, it's a letter from the owner to the adjacent owner regarding the property, and then there's some other information on the flyer. Now, for the record, I need to point out that there is no application submitted related to development on School Street Plaza. And more importantly, one thing is the council indicated it would have a workshop forum to talk about the zoning issues related to Tenalima and School Street Plaza. The owner has indicated that that's an opportunity that he would like to, at that time, share his concept for the project at that time. So there are no plans, no applications submitted for School Street Plaza. More importantly, I think what to understand is the housing element only talked about 9 units on School Street Plaza. Not 30, not 50, 9. And it actually only did environmental analysis for 9 units. So under any scenario, additional what we refer to as CEQA analysis will be required for any development on that site, as well as it would need to go through an application process. But more importantly, it would have to start with the workshop and then go back through the rezone, possibly general plan amendment. It just depends from the workshop what actually needs to be done. So again, no application was submitted or has been submitted. The owner's indicated he's waiting for the workshop to talk about the concepts. And so hopefully that addresses the issues related to that flyer.
As to the repeal of the ordinance, I would like to see some language added that really makes it very clear that the repeal of the zoning ordinance is not a repudiation of the general plan or the housing element, both of which were approved by the City Council, the Housing Committee, and the Planning Commission unanimously. And so if language could be added, and I could hand this in too, that the council does remain committed to the goals, objectives, and policies contained in the general plan that it approved in April 2012 and the certified housing element it approved in October 2013, and is proposing the repeal of Ordinance 778 only as an interim step to facilitate correcting known errors, omissions, and inconsistencies within the general plan and the town code, and that the council attests that the repeal of Ordinance 778 will expeditiously move forward along with public hearings and public discussion with appropriate rezoning acts to realign the town code with the general plan once the known errors, omissions, and consistency in the general plan have been corrected. And I think that, and it looks like my time is up, and I think that really keeps you in compliance with state law and makes it very clear that you intend to move forward and put your zoning ordinances in compliance with your general plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank staff, and I'd like to just, for the record, say that I don't think anybody sitting on that dais is either a coward or a bully. I think that should be real clear. I don't think you can do what you do if you're a coward or a bully, and anyone who sits up there knows that. The recommendation to repeal 778, not what I wanted to hear, but okay, well thought out. I trust the process. I'm one of the people who does. However, my concern is a year from now, let's say, we're here after we've been through a process of town meetings, and we come to the same point. What will we do? What will happen if the folks who are opposed 778 aren't satisfied? We'll be here again. Well, will they concede? Will they say, well, we had another year? This is what people want? I think it's important to consider, and I think it's a question that we need to be able to answer. I think that there's going to be disagreement, and I think we should be judged by the quality of that disagreement, how we carry it on. And I think it can be done in a very positive way. Obviously, people disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. But there is something wrong when rumor is spread and inaccuracies are spread and we don't do things intelligently. I do not think makes a lot of sense to go parcel by parcel. I think we're a town. We've got 7,500 people here. There's a fair amount of parcels. We need a plan. That should be the goal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I second those comments. And I also wanted to speak in support of what Wendy Collins said, that if we go ahead and repeal 778, that we need to somehow make it clear in order to keep the town from being open to basically lawsuits for acting in a way that's not in accordance with our general plan. I don't know whether that's possible or not, but it would be good if we could. And I just wanted to offer my support to Renee for being accused of bullying or something. That seems, for one thing, it's, as I said earlier, I think we should treat each other better than that. And secondly, the comments that were made is what I'm referring to. And secondly, I think actually it's quite the opposite. I think what Renee was offering was some more information to the community. It may or may not be relevant to this discussion, but I think transparency is important, and I applaud that. I applaud your courage, Renee, for that, and I really don't want to see people reacting in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Shelley.
Shelley Hamilton, 134 Canyon Road. I've got a couple of things to say. The first item I'd like to address is that what do the citizens who signed the referendum really want? And I think there's a difference between what the citizens who signed the referendum want and what some of the leaders who started the referendum want. And there's a distinction. Part of the hoax that's going on here is guising the referendum for fixing errors and strengthening our general plan as actually an attempt to block and obstruct our general plan. And there's a difference between fixing it and doing away with it altogether. So I'd like to read you a few statements from Frank Egger and Nicolo Calderero from the IJ about what they really want to have happen here. And I think it goes to this issue of what would happen a year from now if we repeal. Is this going to be an ongoing cycle of planning, but no implementing, because it's going to continue to get blocked? So Calderero states, so really the housing elements are only symbolic. I oppose Fairfax housing element on these grounds because it's useless. The intention of the referendum is not necessarily to fix things and strengthen it, but to oppose Fairfax housing element because it is deemed useless. I hope that it is a top-down usurpation of townspeople's rights and initiative. Frank Anger pointed out that he prefers to characterize the referendum as a local revolt against the state and regional mandates, different from what was proposed back in March, which was a ask to pause the process to fix and amend the general plan to make it better and fix the errors that we were all seeing. Very different perspective. The council needs to revisit its housing plan. And this is the reaction to the growing Marin against density movement. That's what we're seeing with this referendum. So I think there's a real difference here between and I think most people who signed the referendum did so because they wanted to strengthen and fix the errors and do the right thing by fixing things and correcting inconsistencies. That's why I think most people did sign that referendum. But I think there are other agendas at play here as well. And I do think that this may be an ongoing issue. To read from the letter from Frank Eger's legal counsel to the town when the town asked for an extension of time to be able to fix these errors, to voluntarily repeal, not under referendum, but to voluntarily repeal, that the town council needs to be keenly aware that my client's resolve here is to proceed with which will obviously be a great cost and expense to the town. Does the town council really want this kind of exposure?
Yeah, I get it. Fine. Sir.
Hi, I'm Chris McManus. I live across from Fairfax Christ Lutheran Church. I'm speaking to provide my support in the strongest possible terms for the proposed Peace Village affordable housing development for seniors. There are those who simply want to thwart and frustrate the planning process. Their real intent is to block the implementation of the housing element, beginning with this senior housing. They have achieved this through fear-mongering and misrepresentation of the general plan and the housing element. Today's example is the School Street Plaza flyer that I call Exhibit 1. Today, flyers were posted around town that Fred Azazi has an approved project for 30 to 50 condos. This was news to everyone, especially Mr. Azazi. There is no application, nor are there entitlements for such a project. Mr. Azazi was simply responding to a realtor that had sold the neighbor property for a disclosure statement of any possible developments on his property. As Mr. Azazi says in the letter, quote, I am being transparent to reduce the risk of conflict with any potential buyer and prevent any legal action. In short, Fred was covering his ass. No such development would be considered without a CEQA and without a workshop that Mr. Azazi, as well as the Planning Commission, will attend. This is the type of misleading fear-mongering that has driven the referendum to rescind. This flyer goes on to say that tonight is the last chance to save our neighborhood. To that I say, welcome to the apocalypse.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker on number 9.
Norma Fragoso, Myrna Avenue. I've spoken often in this. Are we resetting the clock? I'm sorry, did that? Okay, thank you. I've spoken often in support of our exemplary general plan, housing element, and zoning ordinance 778 because they were adopted with extensive community participation and in accordance with state law. That process is now being held hostage to a misguided referendum of misinformation, originally presented as a request to correct and clarify the zoning map. A straightforward process has been turned into a campaign based on false information that plays to people's fears about the lack of housing, about traffic congestion, and the Corte Madera Wind Cup development. People are being pitted against one another, housing supporters against folks concerned about traffic congestion, and others who want to preserve our town character. This is done to create confusion and antagonism, and town council should not allow this digression. I say this because we've had several meetings where staff has corrected many of the items that we're pointing out, but still, people seem to want to go back to change the policies of the general plan and housing element and to preclude the process of moving forward. I'm disappointed that we don't have a council who is in support of the extensive and elaborate work that was done to adopt this general plan and housing element. I understand you're between a rock and a hard place. You're between having to choose between disobeying the laws of the state and being governed by mob rule. And we have nothing but bad options at your disposal. Unfortunately, I would like to say, go with what's right and stand up for your ordinance. That's absolutely appropriate. But I understand you may need to repeal, in which case, please do so quickly and get it back on the adoption schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma.
Jody Timms, Cascade Drive. I guess I just want to say that I've learned a lot in the last several months, things I actually am not very happy to learn about in terms of our political process in this town and even as a country, and the role that litigation tends to play and the dominance that it's taken. I'm not finding this a problem-solving process at all. And what was missing from the workshop for me, I really want to commend staff. I think they did a fabulous job of presenting information. But I guess I was also expecting, naively, that council members would talk about what the options are in front of us and where they were leaning or standing in terms of the pros and cons of each of those different options. That's how I would normally address a problem that needs to be solved. You analyze it, you look at the pros and cons of all your choices, and then you figure out collectively what's the best way to go. And that's not happening, and I guess it's just not the nature of politics. But I just want to say that I am part of this community. I know there are a lot of people in this community who do not have strong objections to having a general plan, and specifically this general plan, and a housing element. I think they're very important to have, and I don't know what the right thing to do is at this point, but I agree that we need leadership, and we need to figure out how to move forward with people who believe in planning, who want some kind of a plan and some kind of a housing element. Because I hear a lot of people really saying, I don't want either of those. I don't want them. And that's not acceptable. That just can't be where we stop this. And I can't see us spending the next 12 years rewriting a general plan and another housing element. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. And so I think there are a lot of people who have a lot of strong feelings who are not here tonight. I'm here. I have strong feelings. I'd like us to figure out a plan and move it forward with people who want something that we are required to have and that's reasonable for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Jody.